Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिके ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरं चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामीनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna, reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are reading from Canto-4, Chapter 6, Brahmā Satisfies Lord Śiva. So yesterday we have seen a very beautiful description of the banyan tree, which is 800 miles high, that is 1200 kilometers high, and 900 kilometers wide. So this is the banyan tree, under which the great personality, Vaishnavanam Yathashambho, Lord Shiva, he sits and performs his meditation. Because it is required to be very calm during the meditation, therefore there are surprisingly, no birds on that tree. And, this is the feature of the tree. So sometimes, our limited mind may think that, oh, is it possible to have this kind of a tree? But one can simply see, very simple example is, think that how amoeba will think about, the aeroplane. Say our Prime Minister Modi ji, he has a special aeroplane, Air Force One, right? So now that aeroplane carries only one person, and just look at the size of the amoeba. What the amoeba will think of the person, being carried in aeroplane? Very simple. Okay, for amoeba it is like kilometers wide from his perspective and kilometers high. And similarly, we are also amoeba to personalities like Lord Shiva. Correct. So very simple way to understand, because these things are going to come later. Fifth canto is filled with description to screen the people who are still attached to their tarka. Okay, so begins from some of the description is here as well. So we come to next text 33. So we are in the section where there is darshan of Lord Shiva, as Lord Shiva is seen by the Devata, all the demigods along with Lord Brahma. Text 33. Tasmin Mahayogamaya Mumukshu Sharane Sura Dadrushu Shivamaseenam Tyaktarmarsham Ivantakam. Translation.
The demigods saw Lord Shiva sitting under that tree, which was competent to give perfection to mystic yogis and deliver all people. As grave as time eternal, he appeared to have given up all anger. Purport. In this verse, the word Mahayogamaya is very significant. Yoga means meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Mahayoga means those who engage in devotional service of Vishnu. Meditation means remembering, that is Smaranam. There are 9 different kinds of devotional service, of which Smaranam is one process. The yogi remembers the form of Vishnu within his heart. Thus, there are many devotees engaged in meditation on Lord Vishnu under the big banyan tree. The Sanskrit word Maha is derived from the affix Mahat. This affix is used when there is a great number or quantity. So Mahayoga indicates that there were many great yogis and devotees meditating on the form of Lord Vishnu. Generally, Such meditators are desirous of liberation from material bondage, and they are promoted to the spiritual world, to one of the Vaikunthas. Liberation means freedom from material bondage or nescience. In the material world, we are suffering life after life because of our bodily identification, and liberation is freedom from that miserable condition of life. Hare Krishna.
So the demigods, they saw this banyan tree and Lord Shiva sitting under that tree. Competent, the tree which was competent to give perfection to all the mystic yogis and deliver all the people. Now, this is a description of the tree. And Lord Shiva was as grave as time eternal. And he appeared that he has given up all his anger. Anger because of two things. Durukti by Dakṣa, insulting in front of everybody. So insult is bad, and insult in front of everybody is worst. So therefore, one principle is that you uh, criticize, glorify in public and criticize in private. That whenever we want to correct somebody, like we want to correct our son, daughter, sometimes employee, it should not be a public display of criticism. Criticism should be private and glorification should be public. But in case of Lord Shiva, the worst of the criticism happened publicly by a very prominent personality, Dakṣa. And then on the top of that, Sati, the death of the Sati. And then Lord Shiva was extremely angry and upset. But now it appeared that Lord Shiva has given up all his anger. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, yoga means general yoga, but Maha Yoga means Bhakti Yoga. And specifically within that Bhakti Yoga, Lord Shiva is sitting in meditation, remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mumukshu Sharane. And remembering is, the deep absorption. And he was not alone. Mahat. So Mahat means either it is great quality or quantity. So large number of yogis, they were sitting with Lord Shiva, deeply absorbed in Mumukta Sharane, the thoughts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is competent to award liberation. So Mahat is many yogis, Mumukshu Sharane, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, desiring for liberation, Mumukshu. Mahayoga means Bhakti Yoga, or specifically within Bhakti Yoga, in this case, Smaranam, out of the meditation. Text 34. Now, who all were there? Such yogis who were sitting with Lord Shiva. Okay. Sanandanadyai Mahasiddhyai Shantai Sashanta Vigraham Upasyamanam Sakhyacha Bhartrar Guhyakarakshasam. Translation.
Lord Shiva sat there, surrounded by saintly persons like Kuvera, the master of the Guhyakas, and the four Kumāras, who were already liberated souls. Lord Shiva was grave and saintly. Purport: the personalities sitting with Lord Shiva are significant because the four Kumāras were liberated from birth. It may be remembered that after their birth, these Kumāras were requested by their father to get married and beget children in order to increase the population of the newly created universe. But they refused, and at that time, Lord Brahma was angry. In that angry mood, Rudra, or Lord Shiva, was born. Thus, they were intimately related. Kuvera, the treasurer of the demigods, is fabulously rich. Thus, Lord Shiva's association with the Kumāras and Kuvera indicates that he has all transcendental and material opulences. Actually, he is the qualitative incarnation of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, his position is very exalted.
So here, who all were sitting, Lord Shiva was there, surrounded by the great personalities such as Chatushkumar, Sanandanadihi, Sanak Sanatan Sanandan Sanat Kumar, and Kubera. And he was sitting grave and silently. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that the personalities sitting with Lord Shiva are significant. Right? Who are your followers? It's very significant. And that's why one of the very prominent thing is when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, especially the Goswamis, right? Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyugo Sri Jiva Gopalako, Jiva Goswami, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami. These are like who's who in the history of Sanskrit, Nyaya, the grammar, Vakaran, devotion. So there is no match to these personalities. And when these personalities say Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the supreme personality of Godhead, we should blindfold accept Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna and Nityanand Prabhu is Balaram. Right? So who is endorsing such great personalities? In this case, Lord Shiva was filled with, Prabhupada writes here, all transcendental and material opulence. Dakṣa was thinking Shiva is a beggar moving around the smashanas and looking for some ash here and there. He was unaware of the real potency of Lord Shiva. He had all the transcendental opulence in terms of Chatush Kumar trying to receive his association of Lord Shiva. And Prabhupada writes here, they were intimately related as brothers. Because Chatush Kumar, although they were Kumāras, they were actually elder brother of Lord Shiva. When Chatush Kumar came out, they decided to remain children. Lord Brahmā was very angry because his task was to fill the universe and he wanted them to be Prajapati. And Chatush Kumar said that no, we will just remain children. And Lord Brahmā was very angry, and through his anger, Lord Shiva was born. And this Prabhupada says, Chatush Kumar and Lord Shiva, they are very intimately connected as brothers. And Kubera is a great follower of Lord Shiva. So presence of Chatush Kumar represented transcendental opulence, and presence of Kubera, who is the treasurer of the demigods, fabulously rich. Even demigods cannot imagine the riches of Kubera. So that indicates material opulence. And thus, Lord Shiva, who is a qualitative incarnation, Gunavatar of the Supreme Lord, sat in this very exalted position. Text 35. So recently we had a yatra, and I was having something similar realization that there were so many Prabhupada disciples assembled in the yatra. That shows the transcendental opulence. And there were such great personalities, who are like who's who. There were, owner of the Mafatlal industry, then some of the executives from the Ambani and Adani group, and then owner of Apar industry. All these big material opulence also was there. I met a boy at the age of 17. He has received 320 crores ka, the VC, venture capital funding. So all these people were there. Okay. The yatra also was filled with all the transcendental and the material opulence. Text 35. Vidya tapayoga patham astitam tamadishwaram charantam vishwar sarudam vatsalyata lokamangalam. Translation.
The demigod saw Lord Shiva situated in his perfection as the master of the senses, knowledge, fruitive activities, and the path of achieving perfection. He was the friend of the entire world, and by virtue of his full affection for everyone, he was very auspicious. Purport: Lord Shiva is full of wisdom and tapasya austerity. One who knows the mode of work is understood to be situated on the path of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One cannot serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead unless one has achieved full perfectional knowledge in ways and means of performing devotional service. Lord Shiva is described here as Adhishvara. Ishvara means controller, and Adhishvara means particularly controller of the senses. Generally, our materially contaminated senses are apt to engage in sense gratificatory activities. But when a person is elevated by wisdom and austerity, the senses then become purified and they become engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Shiva is the emblem of such perfection, and therefore in the scriptures it is said, Vaishnavam nam yatha Shambho. Lord Shiva is a Vaishnava. Lord Shiva, by his action within this material world, teaches all conditioned souls how to engage in devotional service 24 hours a day. Therefore, he is described here as Lokamangala, good fortune that personified for all conditioned souls. Hare Krishna.
This is very amazing description of Lord Shiva. You can feel the vibe of compassion and vatsalya ras in this verse also. Vidya tapayogapatam asthitam tamadishvaraha. Adhishvaraha is controller of the senses, Lord Shiva, who is complete in Vidya, Tapa and Yoga. Yoga Patham is the Bhakti Marg. And then by doing so, Charantam, while doing so, Vishvasarudam, Vatsalyat Lokamangalam. Such a beautiful verse. Vishvasarudam is the friend of the entire world. Vatsalyat, full of affection. Lokamangalam, for the ultimate auspiciousness for everyone. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, Lord Shiva is full of wisdom and tapasya, austerity, and only such a personality can be engaged in the perfect devotional service. And Lord Shiva is perfect in controlling the senses. He is Adhishvara. So Ishvara means senses, Adhishvara means controller of the senses, in full control of the senses. And thus, he is engaged in devotional service. And Prabhupada writes here, the definition of devotional service, that Rishikena, Rishikesha Sevanam, and this Sarvopadi Vinirmuktam Tat Paratvena Nirmalam, purifying one's senses, one is engaged in, and he is called as a Vaishnava, and Lord Shiva is the topmost Vaishnava, emblem of such personalities. Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu, teaching people how to be engaged in devotional service, and therefore he is Lokamangalam. Right. Lokamangalam especially means Bhuridajanaha. Bhuridajana means because he is teaching people in general how to perform devotional service by his own personal example. Right. Therefore, Lord Shiva is called as Lokamangalam. So there is personal example by Lord Shiva, and there is Sampradaya also, Rudra Sampradaya, that Lord Shiva has for preaching the message. Text. Lingam cha tapasabhishtam bhasmadanda ajinam angena sandhyabhra rucha chandralekham cha bibhratam. Translation.
He was seated on a deer skin and was practicing all forms of austerity. Because his body was smeared with ashes, he looked like an evening cloud. On his hair was the sign of half moon, a symbolic representation. Purport. Lord Shiva's symptoms of austerity are not exactly those of Vaishnava. Lord Shiva is certainly the number one Vaishnava, but he exhibits a feature for a particular class of men who cannot follow the Vaishnava principles. The Shaivites, the devotees of Lord Shiva, generally dress like Lord Shiva, and sometimes they indulge in smoking and taking intoxicants. Such practices are never accepted by followers of Vaishnava rituals.
So although Lord Shiva is the perfect Vaishnava, number one Vaishnava, Prabhupada writes here, his mode of conducting devotional service was different. He was seated on a deer skin, practicing all forms of austerity, tapasya, and then he had smeared the ashes and looked like evening cloud. And there was a beautiful half moon. This is the symbol of Lord Shiva, half moon on the hairs of Lord Shiva. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that Lord Shiva's symptoms of austerity are not exactly those of a Vaishnava. Why? Because you attract, your vibe will attract your tribe. So Lord Shiva's vibe is such that he's moving in the smashanas, he's wearing the deer skin, he's drinking the Kalakuta poison, he's putting the rock around himself, having the snake around him, and such countenance of Lord Shiva automatically attracts the fallen living entities towards the association of Lord Shiva. They think, oh, he's also like one of us and great personality. Let's associate. And by that association, Lord Shiva actually uplifts them. So there is a difference between following a person and imitating a personality. Prabhupada says the Shaivites generally, they try to follow Lord Shiva But in the following of Lord Shiva, later in the 9th canto, there is a very beautiful verse, Bali Asam, how the extremely powerful people, we should never try to imitate them. Like Lord Shiva drinking ocean of poison. And people try to drink some marijuana, ganja, or you must have seen that song, Jai Jai Shiva Shankar, Kata Lage Kankar, and Pyala Naam Ka Piya and all that. And they think that by drinking such a thing, they are actually worshipping Lord Shiva. But actually, Lord Shiva can drink the entire ocean of poison for the benefit of the universe, and he will be glorified as Nilakanta. And Prabhupada says, but if you try to imitate Lord Shiva, one will be destroyed. There is another beautiful example of Shankaracharya, Adi Shankara, when he appeared here, who is incarnation of Lord Shiva, drove away entire Buddhism from India in just 16 odd years. At the age of 8, he took sannyas. At the age of 32, he renounced and he took samadhi. I mean, he just went to Upper Badri. 16 to 32, 24 years, traveled across India, completely drove away Buddhism from Indian territory, Indian land, established mathas, Shankar Math everywhere, introduced Vedas back into people's life. Such a magnanimous personality. One day, he was just moving on and his message was very simple. Jagan Mithya, Brahman Satya. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma. Everything is Brahman. And his followers also very happy following him. So one day when he was walking, he came across a liquor shop. And there the liquor man was joking with him. He said that, oh Swamiji, if everything is Brahman, my liquor is also Brahman. And Adi Shankara, he said that, yes, for me it's Brahman. And he took the glass of the liquor and just put it inside his mouth. And he said that, Sarvam Khalvidam Brahman. And all his followers were so happy. They also took immediately one glass. And they Sarvam Khalvidam Brahman. Brahman entering into Brahman. And they were all intoxicated like that. Shankara, he walked further. And there was the blacksmith who had the molten iron in front of him. And the blacksmith was very happy to receive Shankara. But Shankara said that, please give me some molten iron. And he took the molten iron and he said, this is also Brahman. Brahman entering the Brahman, and he drank the molten iron, Loharas, and all his followers were shaking now. And then he looked at his followers. He said that you followed me for that liquor shop. Now follow my example for this shop also. Right. So Mahi Asam, the very great personalities, we should not imitate their behavior. Like, people dancing, because Krishna is dancing in Ras Leela, people are also trying to dance. No. Prabhupada says, if you can lift Govardhan, you can dance in Ras Leela. So, for the great personalities, we should not imitate their behavior, but we should follow their instructions. So, Bhagavad Gita is to be followed, Bhagavatam is to be relished, right? The Leela of the Supreme Lord. So, this is categorically the case with Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva has to be appreciated and followed his example of engaging in Bhakti Yoga, and not the physical countenance of Lord Shiva, the way he's, looks like, moves around, and there is a reason why he moves around like that. Text 37. Upavishtam darbhamayam brusyam brahma sanatanam Nāradāya pravochantam pruchante shrunvatam satam. Translation.
He was seated on a straw mattress and speaking to all present, including the great sage Nārada, to whom he specifically spoke about the absolute truth. Purport. The Lord was sitting on a mattress of straw because such a sitting place is accepted by persons who are practicing austerities to gain understanding of the absolute truth. In this verse, it is specifically mentioned that he was speaking to the great sage Nārada, a celebrated devotee. Nārada was asking Lord Shiva about devotional service, and Shiva, being the topmost Vaishnava, was instructing him. In other words, Lord Shiva and Nārada were discussing the knowledge of the Veda, but it is to be understood that the subject matter was devotional service. Another point in this connection is that Lord Shiva is the supreme instructor, and the great sage Nārada is the supreme audience. Therefore, the supreme subject matter of Vedic knowledge is bhakti or devotional service. Hare Krishna.
Amongst the other personalities, there was Nārada, the great sage Nārada. He was sitting there. So we have seen Chatushkumar, they were sitting, Kubera was sitting, Nārada was sitting. And especially, he was discussing with Nārada Muni about the Guhya pastime, the Guhya aspects of devotional service. And the purport Srila Prabhupada says, somebody sitting on a kusha grass means, sitting on the mattress of the straw means that when he's practicing meditation to gain the higher understanding about the absolute truth. So Lord Shiva is meditating on someone directly indicates that there is somebody whom he is trying to please and he is devotee of. And that Bhagavatam says, Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambho, Lord Shiva is the greatest devotee of Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna. There was a celebrated devotee Nārada Muni, and there was a discussion between the supreme instructor Lord Shiva, Jagadguru, and the supreme student Nārada Muni, exalted personality, and the subject matter also has to be very exalted. So it depends on the quality of the both, right? One who is asking the question, one who is answering the question, the subject matter is being decided. Now here, Lord Shiva is the supreme instructor, Nārada is the supreme audience. The subject matter has to be related to the supreme, and the supreme yoga related to supreme, that is Maha Yoga. The subject matter was Bhakti Yoga, devotional service unto Lord Krishna. So this is the discussion that was going on. This is how the demigods, they saw Lord Shiva. Text 38. Krusvorau dakshine savyam padapadmam cha januni bahum prakoshte akshamalam asinam tarkamudraya. Translation.
His left leg was placed on his right thigh, and his left was placed on his left thigh. This sitting posture is called Virasana. In his right hand, he held Rudraksha beads, and his finger was in the mode of argument. Posture is described herein is called Virasana. According to the Ashtanga Yoga performances, according to the system of Ashtanga Yoga performances, in the performance of yoga, there are 8 divisions such as Yama and Niyama, controlling and following the rule, then practicing the sitting posture, etc. Besides Virasana, there are other sitting postures such as Padmasana and Siddhasana. Practice of these asanas without elevating the super soul, Vishnu, is not the perfectional stage of yoga. Lord Shiva is called Yogeshvara, the master of all yogis, and Krishna is called Yogeshvara. Yogeshvara indicates that no one can surpass the yoga practice of Lord Shiva, and Yogeshvara indicates that no one can surpass the yogic perfection of Krishna. Another significant word is Tarka Mudra. This indicates that the fingers are opened and the second finger is raised along with the arm to impress the audience with some subject matter. This is actually a symbolic representation. Hare Krishna.
Now the Bhagavatam enters into the slow motion and giving how exactly Lord Shiva was sitting. His left leg was placed on the right thigh. So just place your left leg on the right thigh and the left hand on the left thigh. His right hand was raised and the second finger was raised. And this is called as Tarka Mudra. So Lord Shiva was sitting in Virasana and he was in Tarka Mudra, the mode of argument or giving instruction. Right. So this is the beautiful picture of Lord Shiva, how he was sitting under that great, huge banyan tree. Chatushkumar, Nārada Muni, Kubera, thousands of yogis, all sitting in practicing this, and this discussion was going on. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains the sitting posture is called Virasana. It is part of the Ashtanga Yoga practice. Lord Shiva is called as, so there is practicing of Padmasana, Siddhasana, Virasana, and these asanas are very, very useful. In fact, we have to do, Yogasana every day. And it is highly recommended that one does at least 35 minutes, 30, 35, 45 minutes Yogasana. So personally, we both, myself, Parmeshwari, we both have joined this online yoga class, of course, not to recommend anybody, but we found this one good yoga class online by this Saurabh Botra. And he has a nominal fees also and conducts various yogas. So, but one has to do yogasana. So these are the different asanas. I was reflecting what is the difference between gym and yoga. Okay, because both are good. I mean, it is not to criticize one and glorify another. But yoga, along with the exercise, it will also teaches the bodily control of the mind, and there are many finer aspects of the subtle body being controlled by performing yoga. Gym is building the muscles and then also strengthening the mind, but mind may not be necessarily controlled. Again, one should do whatever one suits. Best one can do both, because gym has its own advantages. But one has to do something, and if not nothing, neither gym or yoga, one must at least walk for 20 minutes a day. Okay, this is very important. Speed walking for 20 minutes, that will give a very good exercise to one's heart muscle. So, okay, back to Padmasana and Virasana. So Lord Shiva is also called Yogeshwara. Lord Krishna is also called Yogeshwara, but there is a slight difference in the connotation. Lord Shiva is called Yogeshwara because he is master of all the yogis. No one can practice like Lord Shiva the yoga. That's how he is Yogeshwara. Lord Krishna is called as Yogeshwara because that means no one can surpass the yogic perfection like Krishna. So this is the slight difference. Although both are Yogeshwara, this is the difference between the Yogeshwara. So Lord Shiva was sitting in Virasana and Tarka Mudra, and very beautiful audience, beautiful sitting posture, and the huge audience, amazing setup. And this is how the demigods, they had darshan of Lord Shiva. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Prabhupada.
Hare
Thank you, Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Hare Bol.
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. That material opulence and transcendental knowledge, they go same way? They go together?
They can go together for a great personality, right? So generally we have understanding ki, we have to practice the Nishkinchana, but that doesn't mean Nishkinchana doesn't mean that devotee has to be like a beggar. No. So Nishkinchana means that one has no proprietorship, and that's why we say that great personalities like Ambarish Maharaj, he was materially very rich, spiritually very great. Pandavas, materially very great, spiritually very great. And then you can see many personalities like this. So it is not the understanding of the devotee that by material opulence, no. And with advent of Rupa Goswami and by his giving the principle of Yukta Vairagya, material and spiritual opulence can go very, very well together. Right. What is the critical point here is? The critical point is that the pursuit of material opulence should not jeopardize our devotional service. Right? That we are so much after the material opulence that we have no time for the spiritual activities. Neither and it has to be age appropriate. Right? Somebody in their 20s, like when we preach to the boys and others, and in the 20s, the boy cannot be sitting hands on and thinking that Prabhuji, if Krishna exists, whatever is in my destiny, it will come. No, destiny will be revealed by your actions. So that is not the right way of doing. So the age also comes in consideration for these when we talk of material and spiritual opulence. But when one is aging, like one is 50, 55, 60, then one should accept whatever opulence one has and focus the energy more on the spiritual aspect. But it is very important for the growing devotees, especially age growing, that 20, 21, 30, 31, 35, 40s, that one is working on both sides and not falsely thinking that I'm spiritually advanced, I don't need material opulence. That is not the understanding. Devotee acquires material opulence to be engaged in service of the Lord. Right?
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Good question.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, here Lord Shiva is Yogeshwara, no? And Lord Krishna is Yogeshwar.
Right. So Lord Shiva is also sometimes called as Yogeshwara.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but more precisely, it is Yogeshwara and Yogeshwara. Correct. Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone.